Thank you for joining us today as we have a press conference to announce the reopening plans for Metro Nashville Public Schools. Starting off will be Amy Froeg, Chair of the Metro Board of Education, followed by Dr. Adrian Battle, Director of Metro Public Schools, and Dr. Alex Jahunger, Chair of the Metro Coronavirus Task Force. And then we will follow it up with questions from the media. Ms. Froeg.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for being here today. This is a challenging time for all of us who believe in the power of public education. Our schools have been closed for nearly 4 months now. Many students and families have seen their lives upended by a global pandemic. An entire graduating class didn't get the send-off it deserved. But a summer of challenges has also been a summer of hard work to prepare for a new school year. Dr. Battle and her team have been constantly meeting and working and asking tough questions and answering those questions. They've been planning for multiple learning scenarios, making big decisions, and making sure that our students, our families, and our staff will have the supports they need in any environment. And when it's time for the new school year to begin, Metro Nashville Public Schools will be ready to continue offering a high-quality education. That's what we do, it's what we have to do, and it's what we will do. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Battle to share the details of our plans for returning to school.
Thank you, Dr. Jahunger and Board Chair Froeg, for being here today and for your leadership and support for the students, families, and staff of Metro Nashville Public Schools. On this day last month, I was here to join Metro health officials and leaders of the city's Catholic, private, and charter schools as we released the Nashville Plan, a framework for a safe, equitable return to schools. At that time, we were all very optimistic that Nashville was going to be moving forward with a phased reopening plan that would allow a return to a sense of normalcy and the safe reopening of schools. As we approached the 4th of July, we took the information available to us at that time and were continuing the planning for a physical, in-person return for those families who wanted to pursue that choice. And we also wanted to provide the option of virtual learning for families who needed that option. All that to say, I fully intended to be speaking to you today about offering those two options and explaining exactly what that would mean to your child's experience this fall at MNPS. I stand before you today representing tens of thousands of students and 11,000 teachers and staff in Metro Nashville Public Schools. I take that responsibility very seriously. I bring my expertise as an educator, as well as my many years of service and care for this community and our students. I'm not a public health expert, but I've grown increasingly uncomfortable with the data and information in front of us and the implications for the safety and well-being of our students and staff. Our school district does not operate in isolation, and we should not and cannot make the decision about opening and closing schools in isolation. We work in service of the partnership and with the community, and we are all in this together as a community. We are eager to open, but you have seen the same images and data I have seen. Our nation has not prioritized the steps to reduce the spread of COVID-19. We have not had our national priorities focused on that goal. We had every reason to believe we were on track to be in phase 4 by the time schools were scheduled to start on August 4th, or at least near the end of phase 3. But in the last few weeks, the numbers have caused many of us to rethink our optimism. The city has now moved into a modified phase 2 environment, which, according to our plan, does not allow for in-person classes due to the increased spread of COVID-19. The rate of transmission in recent weeks has been increasing. And just in the last week, we've seen some of the worst daily numbers of COVID-19 infections since the crisis began in March. This is not a problem unique to Nashville. It is happening across Tennessee. Our governor has extended the state of emergency through the end of August, and cities and states across our nation have been scaling back plans to reopen their economies in order to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Throughout it all, our teams have been preparing for multiple teaching and learning scenarios with the keen understanding that we must be prepared for whatever comes our way, now or later in the school year. We know that we must, for the sake of our students, be prepared to offer a high-quality education to all, whether it is safe to meet in classrooms or we have to meet online. All the information I've seen in the last couple of weeks, combined with numerous stakeholder conversations with our board members, teachers, parents, and health officials, leads me to the conclusion that we should not return to an in-person learning environment on August 4th. Instead, we will move forward with full implementation of virtual learning plans through at least the Labor Day holiday. This will allow social distancing, mask mandates, and other measures to take effect and reduce the spread of COVID-19 before tens of thousands of students and staff return to our schools, which could potentially spread the disease among our people and in the community if we're not careful. In the virtual environment, students who have enrolled at their zone school, magnet school, or other school of choice will remain with that school, with teachers being assigned in a similar fashion to the way they normally would in the in-person environment. This is not the way I wanted things to go. I wanted to see students and staff back in their buildings as much as anyone. Just as I hated to see last year's graduates have to miss out on prom and a traditional graduation, I hate to think about this year's kindergartners and their parents missing out on going to their classrooms and meeting their teachers on the first day. I am encouraging principals and teachers to try to replicate those moments to the extent it's possible in the virtual setting. We are now prepared and will continue to be prepared to open our schools for face-to-face learning. We've purchased the PPE and designed the detailed plans required to safely do so when community spread is at a less dangerous level. But health and safety must come first. And I hope that by announcing our plans now, we'll give everyone time to prepare for starting school with virtual learning in 4 weeks, but with every hope of reducing the spread of COVID-19 so we can return to our school buildings this fall. Now, I want to be very clear that this online educational experience in 2020-21 is not going to be anything like the educational experiences when we first closed schools, or even during the Remote Learning 2.0 plan in the last few weeks of the 2019-20 school year. Those offerings were optional for students. Grades were not taken, attendance was not mandatory, and many parents found other outlets to keep their children learning other than what was being offered at that time. It was a learning experience for staff, students, and families alike. We had state waivers that essentially ended the school year in the third quarter and allowed us to offer a more relaxed learning environment that recognized the newfound stress and uncertainty of a situation nobody in a lifetime had ever experienced. For the coming school year, we will take those lessons we've learned and apply them to a robust, high-quality, proven virtual curriculum that will include 6.5 hours a day of learning opportunities for students so that they are growing academically and are prepared for the return to an in-person classroom schedule and environment. That said, this also won't be a 6.5 hours a day of video meetings. There will be a healthy mix of synchronous classroom experiences where students will interact with their teachers and peers in real time, and a lot of asynchronous learning experiences where students will be able to work at their own pace to complete the tasks and assignments required of them. As a district, we're proposing to contract with the Florida Virtual School to provide curriculum for online classes as well as for in-person classes when it is safe to return. That way, students will be learning at the same pace as their peers and in such a way that they can move between a virtual and an in-person class environment as the situation requires if we have to shut down schools or the district again due to spikes in COVID-19. We have worked hard and we will continue to work hard to make virtual learning work for all students, including students with disabilities and English learners. By taking this approach of a unified curriculum, we'll also be easing the burden on teachers who may be newer to the virtual environment and still learning the system. This will also allow for additional supports to students and staff as they learn not only new academic lessons, but also a new way of learning. You can't make any big change in the way you teach and support students without training frontline staff to implement those plans. Between now and August 4th, we'll continue to deliver professional development to ensure that all MNPS teachers and support staff are prepared not only for virtual teaching and learning, but also to provide the social emotional learning supports we know our students will need. For example, SEL in a virtual learning environment is a new professional development that we created for teachers to focus on integrating mindfulness, self-awareness, and building relationships with students in a virtual setting. Distance doesn't mean disengaged. A training that discusses ways to create authentic family partnerships, recognizing that families are critical levers to student success. We've also created a Schoology Live event that helps teachers learn about the Schoology virtual learning management system while they use it. We have a session to train teachers in using the Flipgrid platform as well. And there's one for use around accessibility tools to help meet the needs of diverse learners. Again, those are just a few examples out of dozens. All of these professional trainings and many more will be central to our success in this new environment this year. Thanks to the generous support of Mayor Cooper and the Metro Council, MNPS will be a one-to-one technology district this school year, meaning every student will be assigned a device of their own to use for learning either in the classroom or at home. It will be an important shift for Metro schools that is long overdue. Unfortunately, we're just one of many districts seeking to make that shift this school year, and so the supply of those new devices that we all need hasn't kept up with the demand for them. Thankfully, while we have not been a one-to-one district, MNPS and our individual schools have made many purchases over the last few years to have technology available for students in the school environment. Based on our assessments of the need for devices throughout district surveys and school check-ins and the supply of devices in all of our schools that can be loaned out, we can meet the needs of all students without current access to devices and close the technology gap while those new computers arrive over the course of the next 4 to 6 months. The learning management system we'll use, primarily Schoology, can be used on almost any laptop or tablet that families may have. We ask that those families and students with their own devices use those so that students who need district-provided devices will have one available to them. Our information technology systems are going to be busy preparing devices for students at the school locations that will be distribution hubs for students enrolled at those schools who need them. Our transportation teams and other support staff will assist in delivering devices to those families who aren't able to get to school to pick up one of their own. Next week, we'll ask families who are interested in a device to fill out a form so that you can be contacted by our teams or your school. But all schools will be contacting families to assess student needs and ensure all students pre-K through 12th grade will have devices by the start of the school year on August 4th. We'll also have 17,000 hotspots for families that don't have access to reliable internet connections, so they will be able to participate in the virtual learning environment. As we receive new laptops, we'll be replacing those that were loaned out initially, and doing so based on an equity matrix that considers priority school status, family needs, and the like. MNPS also will have a new technology support line this year dedicated to families that speak a language other than English. Families can reach an interpreter in the top 7 languages spoken in the district and get technology support directly when they need support for online learning. Math, science, English, history, and other academic subjects are all important for students to advance academically and be college and career ready when that time comes. And we'll be doing the assessments necessary to gauge learning progress or learning loss and create individual student plans to address their unique needs. But social emotional learning and support are also critical to making sure our students are in a healthy place and mindset where they can effectively learn academically. When school resumes on August 4th, many of our students may feel socially distant and isolated from their peers, anxious about an uncertain world, and in need of physical and emotional supports that we strive to provide in our schools. That's why a primary focus of our first days and weeks when we return to classes in a virtual setting will be assessing the traumatic experiences that students or their families may have suffered from the COVID-19 pandemic, the closure of our schools, or just in their normal everyday lives. Some students may be in households where family members have lost jobs, gotten sick, or even died due to COVID-19. And we need to be cognizant of the emotional challenges they faced and the need to support them through those. So a key component of our virtual return to school will be regular one-on-one check-ins between our school staff and students. It's critical that we keep up with the students in our care, help them whenever we can, and bridge the gaps that this pandemic has opened up between our students and our schools, which are so often a home away from home in normal times. Make no mistake, this is not where I thought we'd be a couple weeks ago. We had been working as a district to design an in-person educational environment that reflected the new realities of our COVID-19 world and gave students and families a choice to start the new school year. And we continue to plan for that eventual reality. Our district has ordered more than 1.5 million disposable masks of varying sizes for students, 20,000 reusable masks for teachers, disposable wipes, sanitizer, and other supplies, and personal protective equipment that will mitigate the dangers and threats of COVID for our students, their families, and our staff. We are prepared to provide PPE to all students and staff. But we'll also have to return to a less than ideal environment because of the physical, financial, and logistical challenges a district of our size faces. Our classrooms are not designed to allow 6 feet of space between all desks, and we have neither the funding nor the supply of willing applicants to dramatically expand our teaching pool to reduce classroom sizes to the point where 6 feet of space at all times is possible. With regard to bus transportation, we'll be encouraging as many families as possible to support social distancing when we return to in-person learning by dropping their students off at school or finding alternative methods of transportation. But we face the likely reality that we can't offer the CDC gold standards for social distancing on buses, and we'll be relying on students wearing masks, which we'll provide for those who need them on buses, in classrooms, and in common areas of schools to further mitigate the spread of COVID-19. For some, this will be a burden that they don't want to endure, and for others, it will still not be enough to make families or students comfortable about returning to school. That's why, when we're in a place to allow students back into classrooms, we'll still maintain an option for students to learn virtually from home. While certain things have been decided moving forward for the 2020-21 school year, I want to be clear that there is still a lot we don't know about COVID-19. About the impact of the extended closures on students and their learning capabilities, about opportunities and challenges that will be presented to us in the coming weeks and months. Just as our students will be learning in a virtual setting, we'll be learning as a district from ourselves and from our peers around the state and country about how we can adapt, improve, and challenge ourselves to do better for the students and families we serve. And we will continue to communicate early and often. Sometimes you'll hear from me. Sometimes you'll hear from your school's principal and your school's child's teachers. All of those and all of us will be transparent about the opportunities and challenges we face as we all navigate this unique school year together. In these uncertain times, there is a lot I can't promise because of the factors outside of our control. But I can promise to keep an open mind and an open ear to listen to our stakeholders. I know that everyone in our district, staff, families, students, and community partners, we all share the same goal: a safe, equitable return to schools. And while we are all making painful sacrifices that were unimaginable a year ago, we know we can achieve that goal if we continue to work together. I simply cannot thank everyone in our district enough for pushing through these challenges so that we can continue to do the essential work of teaching and learning and preparing our city's children for the future. I know that's a lot of information to process. I'll be happy to take questions today, understanding that there will be a lot more information to provide in the coming days and weeks as we continue to refine our plans based on the feedback we receive from our stakeholders. For more information, know that it is available at MNPS, www.mnps.org/backtoschool. We'll have frequently asked questions, expectation guides, and other information that will help families and staff get an understanding for what is going to happen. We're working to make sure we have as much of that information translated for our families that don't speak English as their primary language as possible, so that all families can be well informed in the coming weeks and as school starts. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Battle, for having me up here today. This morning, we announced another large number of new COVID-19 cases in our city. And other metrics are concerning as we continue this battle against COVID-19. The Metro Nashville Public School System represents one of the largest employers in Davidson County, educating more than 80,000 students in 160 district and charter schools. Their situation, with such a large and diverse number of students, teachers, and facilities, is going to be a lot different than smaller schools or employers. And these decisions need to be made well in advance so that schools can be ready to open. Starting in a virtual setting and waiting a little longer before returning MNPS students to the classroom is the right decision at this time. Now, we hope to see our numbers drop because of the policies we've implemented over the past couple of weeks. As I continue to say, it really does come down to personal responsibility. This means we will all have to take this virus seriously and practice social distancing, washing your hands, and wearing masks. I cannot say this enough. Please wear your mask. Not doing so puts your friends and neighbors at risk, harms the ability of so many students to return to class, and prevents our economy from going forward. We need to focus on doing our part right now so that after Labor Day, the students of MNPS will be able to return to their classrooms, be with their peers, and interact with their teachers in the way we all want. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll take questions from the media. Those on the call, if you want to raise your hand if you have a question. We'll start with Kathleen Siri with Fox 17.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
We can. Yes, we can.
Yes. Okay. Sorry about that. So a couple of questions. First, regarding the hotspots, you mentioned a number of 17,000. Obviously, we have way more students than that, around 86,000. So how is the decision going to be made about who gets the hotspots and who does not get the hotspots? Next question, Vice President Pence says they're going to be giving incentives to school districts that do open brick and mortar schools and have in-person classes. So can you give us a little perspective on what MNPS could possibly be losing in incentives because we are making the decision to stay virtual? And then finally, just talking about school breakfasts and lunches, is there going to be any sort of program to help out students who may not have access to reliable meals? Thank you.
Sure. To start off with your question about hotspots, that would be one per family because you can share those hotspots. But the number that we have is based on a needs assessment we did about families that did not have access to internet. And so based on that needs assessment, we believe we have adequate number of hotspots to provide to students. As far as breakfast and lunch meals, as Dr. Battle spoke about, we intend to provide breakfast and lunch through schools, via bus routes or in person. Certain rules and regulations apply regarding federal stipulations or state stipulations, so we're going to work through those guidelines to make sure we can provide it to as many families as possible. Those students that attend CEP, Community Eligibility Provision Schools, will be able to get them regardless. Those families that do not will need to hopefully sign up for the free and reduced lunch program so that they can get access to those meals for free of charge, or else people will be allowed to pay for them as well. I'll leave Dr. Battle for the question about incentives.
In response to the question regarding incentives to support our district, I think what's most important for us is to prioritize the safety of our students, our employees, and our families. And with this plan, that's what we have continued to rely upon and prioritize. We're also prioritizing engaging and reconnecting with our students from day one, which for MNPS is August 4th. And so with those two areas being priority for us, we will continue to focus on utilizing the resources that we have and the resources that will be available to us as we move forward to ensure that teaching and learning, students academically engaging and growing continues on behalf of all of our pre-K 12 students. Thank you.
Next up, we have Shayla Paz.
Hi, thank you so much. I had a question, but I guess everybody gonna be doing virtual learning at the beginning of the school year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So my next question is: will students will be doing any kind of sports during the school year, or that is off the table? What's the answer on that?
So we've already adopted a practice plan available for students to do conditioning, and we will be looking to TSSAA guidance about what that looks like and following the national plan framework with regards to sports activities. But at this point, we anticipate that will be happening.
Thank you.
Next up, we had Shelby Stevens.
Hey, yes. So, give me 1 second. Technical difficulties.
We have a little bit of feedback coming.
Sorry, guys. Okay, awesome. Sorry about that. Okay, so when it comes to parents who have to work these hourly jobs, do y'all have any plans for these kids who don't have babysitters or don't have anybody who can sit there and help them with this technology and maybe younger? Are y'all looking at that and what y'all can do for these kids?
Dr. Battle?
Yes, with regards to childcare, I mean, I think I'll take this opportunity to emphasize why it's so important for us to practice good social distancing, wearing our masks, hand washing is so important and critical to our ability as a school district to be able to reopen and to get back to a sense of normalcy. According to our plans, with where we are with the current cases and transmission rates, our facilities will remain closed through phase 2. At the point that we move into phase 3 and phase 4, we do have plans by which we can offer some of our typical and normal opportunities for extended care, before and after care, and other opportunities that we traditionally have offered. In the meantime, our team will be working with community partners and other organizations that could be leveraged for our families who have that need, and we will definitely look forward to those partnerships and communicate them widely as they are made available. So again, our facilities do remain closed during phase 2, but we are interested in and looking for partnerships to leverage those to support families who may be in that particular situation.
Thank you. Damon Mitchell, WPLN.
I just have 2 questions, Sean. The first is I'm curious to know what, as far as art classes in the remote setting, what's the plan for that now and then also after Labor Day if you are able to continue in-person classes? And I'm not sure if I missed this, but as far as class sizes for the online learning, is there like a minimum that the district is looking at?
So I'm going to invite up David Williams. He is the Executive Officer of Curriculum Instruction to answer the first question.
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you for the question. In terms of arts classes, the curriculum that Dr. Battle described earlier that can be delivered in a virtual setting does include a comprehensive suite of related arts classes. So we intend that arts classes will continue. We're developing plans quickly to figure out a way we can disperse and distribute art supplies that would accompany the kids while they're in home so that they can access the content and the curriculum online, as well as any activities that would require some arts materials that they can utilize at home. In terms of the number of students that they will have, teachers will be assigned their normal caseload of students as if they were in person, so that they'll continue to engage with that same number of students, whether we're in a virtual setting or if we're in person.
Thank you. And I believe your other question was about after Labor Day. The plan is to make a decision within 2 weeks or at least 2 weeks out of that as to whether we be reopening. And then when we reopen, it'll be the optional of in-person or a virtual school. Ashley Haugen?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Of the 6.5 hours of learning opportunity per day, how much of that will be synchronous and how much will be asynchronous? That's my first question. The second question is, what sort of lead time will families get in terms of preparing or being equipped to use the online learning tools prior to the start of the school year?
Dr. Battle?
With regards to the instructional opportunities for our students, as you mentioned, first of all, our students will have 7 days a week, 24-hour access to our asynchronous learning opportunities. They will be provided a significant amount of opportunities in the live synchronous options as well, meaning that our teachers will be delivering live lessons and engagement opportunities for our students, starting with our youngest learners all the way up through our 12th grade senior students. That time varies depending on the age of the student. We always want to make sure we're age appropriate and really balancing out the mix of modes by which we connect with our students via videos, live teaching, and the asynchronous environment. So again, those times vary within that time frame based upon the age and the appropriateness for the student. And to answer your question with regards to the lead time, if a different decision or option is available to families after Labor Day, our goal is to provide at least a 2-week advance notice in that scenario, understanding that when you're in a face-to-face environment, there may be times where we have to make much more sooner decisions once we get to the in-person setting.
Thank you. Alex Dennis?
Hi there, it's Alex Dennis with News 2. My question pertains to high school classes. I understand that there will be some sort of a block learning instead of the traditional 7-day period. Will you kind of explain how the credits will work and how that day will unfold for them, please? Thank you.
Just like the 4x4?
Yes, first I will clarify, our zone high schools are currently on a block schedule and not a 7-day period schedule where our students take 4 classes on A day and 4 classes on B day. To be very considerate, supportive of our high school students, understanding that 8 classes at one time in the virtual setting could be a little overwhelming. We're going to still provide and allow for our students to obtain up to 8 credits a year in their traditional setting. They will take 4 classes in the fall and 4 classes in the spring, equating to the same number of credits that they now currently, or in our previous traditional structure, were allowed to obtain during their course scheduling. So again, we're not in a 7-day period block in our zoned high schools. They've been on an A-B block schedule, and now we'll be moving to a 4x4 block schedule with 4 classes in the fall and 4 classes in the spring.
Thank you. And that's all the questions we have for today. I appreciate you joining. We'll have more information posted at mnps.org/backtoschool. Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.